Allied. Hello and very warm welcome. Very good evening. So today we will be starting with day one of our economy of our mains genesis and answer crafting program. Let people join as soon as possible, and then we will begin the session. So as you are already aware that first we will be discussing few topics, and then we will be talking about or we will be discussing the questions that need to be discussed. So this is the question paper for day one. These are the 5 questions that we need to discuss. These are the 5 questions that we need to discuss. So first, we will start with the calculation of GDP. This topic includes the national income, internationalization of rupee, etc. So we will begin with the GDP first, and let's discuss few concepts related to it. And at the end, we can see how to write answers. Right? What contents needs to be added in the answer. So as you are aware that this particular day we the focus will be to have understanding related to GDP and its related concepts, right? So if we talk about GDP directly, gross domestic product, I hope this is visible, gross domestic product or GDP, then there are few concepts associated with it. If we can understand the definition of it, then we can understand lot many other concepts related to national income here, right? So let's first try understanding the definition of it. What is exactly the GDP or gross domestic product? So the value of total value, or you can write total value of final goods and services produced in a domestic territory of an economy, right? So total value of final goods and services produced in a domestic territory of an economy in a given financial year. In a given financial or over a period of financial year. This is the definition of gross domestic product. Now we have to understand the related concepts. How we can understand the related concept? By understanding the terms which are included here. For example, why total value? When we are concerned about the production that is taking place in our economy, we are concerned about the production. So we may go for calculation of goods and services. For example, we may talk about the education services produced in our country. We may talk about healthcare services produced in our country, right? Or for example, we also can talk about the number of goods that are being produced, right? But what will happen here is we are calculating the quantity of goods and services that are produced here, right? If any doubt is there, you can stop me and you can put your message in the chat box. I will reply that. So this is education, number of healthcare, etc., number of goods. If we are calculating all these things, then it is easy to calculate the value of it. For example, if we are not calculating value, what we will be calculating? We will be calculating 1,000 tons of rice, 1,000 tons of rice, for example, 2,000 tons of wheat, etc. So this is how, if we are calculating, we will not be able to arrive at a conclusion. So what we calculate is total value of final goods and services produced. So that is why value, right? So these things will be calculated as per the value attached to it. What is the value of the educational services that has been produced? What is the value of healthcare services that has been produced? What is the value of number of goods? And these are the various goods can be there. So how we calculate this? This is how we calculate this. Now let's talk about final goods and services. So there are lot of varieties, lot of types of goods and services. First we can talk about, if we talk about goods and services, broadly we can classify them as capital goods. And when we talk about goods and services, broadly we can classify them as capital goods, as capital goods and consumer goods. Capital goods and consumer goods. We can also talk about intermediate goods. We can also talk about the intermediate goods here, right? Intermediate. Now let's try understanding what do we mean by capital good, what do we mean by consumer goods and intermediate goods. When we talk about capital goods are those goods which are used for further production of goods and services. Used for further production of goods and services. Further production of goods and services. This is capital goods. Goods and services. When we talk about consumer goods are those goods which are consumed for satisfaction, right? So you have consumed this is, and intermediate goods which gets consumed during production, during production. Now what do we mean by this? Let's understand. For example, we will take a car, right? You have purchased a car. Now you are using this particular car for traveling to maybe your office, to your college, or to your workplace, right? So this car is being used by you for your services, right? You want to reach somewhere, you are using the services of that particular car. So this car is owned by you and you are using this car to visit places, right? So this car is being used by your self consumption, used for your self consumption. That is why we will classify this car as consumer good, right? For example, the clothes that you wear, the footwears that you use, right? All these things are related to consumer goods, right? The food items that we eat, this is related to what? Consumer goods. So whatever is the consumer goods, those goods, what are the consumer goods? Basically those goods which we use for our consumption, right? Or our ultimate satisfaction. So the goods and services that we use for our satisfaction, that is known as what? Consumer goods. When we talk about capital goods, when the same car is being used for taxi services, to provide taxi services, for example Ola, Uber, Rapido, etc. When we use this car for providing taxi services, then it is known as what? It is used for production of services. Taxi service is what? Production services. So it is what? Used for further production of services. When it is being used for further production of services, that means what? That means now you will be generating money out of this particular services. This is known as what? Capital goods. Why capital goods? Because now it is being used for further production of goods and services. Here it is not being used for production of goods and services, rather it is being used for consumption. So this is being used for consumption purposes, this is being used for further production of goods and services. That is the difference between capital good and consumer good. Now when we talk about intermediate goods, in this particular example you can understand fuel that is being used. This fuel is what? Intermediate goods here. This fuel is what? Intermediate goods here. Why? Because it will get consumed during the production process. So get consumed during the production process. It is known as what? Intermediate goods. So I hope this is clear. Capital good, consumer good. Now on the basis of law of demand and supply, we study other type of goods also. For example, we also talk about inferior goods. We also talk about giffen goods, right? Giffen goods. We also talk about the Veblen goods, right? So these are also the type of goods, right? But as of now, when we are discussing GDP calculation, it is not important to discuss these goods here. We can discuss this in the context of demand and supply, but these are also the types that we can remember, right? Now let's come back to the definition. So we have understood final goods and services. Now, as the definition says, final goods and services. So when we say final goods and services, intermediate goods are not used for GDP calculation. So intermediate goods will not be used for GDP calculation, right? Will not be used for GDP calculation. Only final goods and services will be used, and this final goods and services consist of this capital as well as consumer goods. Capital goods as well as consumer goods. So capital goods as well as consumer goods, but not intermediate goods. Not intermediate goods. So it will not be used. Intermediate goods will not be used for calculation of GDP, right? I hope this is fine. Now let's understand one more parameter here, that is in the domestic territory. So what do we mean by domestic territory of a country, right? What do we mean by domestic territory? When we say domestic territory includes this land and sea boundary. So land boundary completely, right? Whatever land area we have, this 32 lakh square kilometer, approximately 32 lakh square kilometer area, that is the domestic, that is the part of domestic territory. Also we can talk about the sea boundary, but sea boundary up to 12 nautical miles. Sea boundary up to 12 nautical miles. Also the airlines and shipping companies, airlines and shipping companies or shipping firms headquartered in our country. What do we mean by this? For example, Indigo is there, and Indigo is having headquarters in India, and Indigo is flying between London and New York. So it will be generating some value, right? From London to New York or New York to London, it is generating some value. When it is generating some value, that value will be added to India's GDP. Why India's GDP? Because these airline, shipping companies, etc., these are having their work in the global territory, and when they are having work in global territory, they will be headquartered in any one of the country. So when they are having headquartered in a country, their business will be calculated, their production, the value of their production of services will be calculated under the GDP of that country where it is being headquartered, right? So where it is headquartered, so airline and shipping firms headquartered in the country. Or for example, this when we talk about this oil and gas companies, when oil and gas firms, when they are doing exploration in international waters. So when they are performing exploration in international waters, right? This is the thing that we can understand. This is about what? Domestic territory. This is domestic territory. Also, one more thing we can write about consulates and embassies of or consulates or embassies in different countries. Consulates and embassies in different countries. Right? For example, India is having its consulate. Suppose consulates and embassies. Consulates are nothing but the branches of embassy. Embassy will be one. For example, US is having its embassy in India. If we talk about India, suppose this is India. So US is having embassy in New Delhi, and it is having consulates in Mumbai, and maybe other parts can also be there. So consulates in Mumbai, why? Because embassy is in Delhi, so the branch of embassy is known as what? Consulates, right? So this is related to consulates, embassies in different countries. For example, India is having its embassy in US, so this is US. India is having its embassy here. This particular territory will be part of domestic territory of India, will be taken as domestic territory of India only, and the value of goods and services produced here will be calculated under the calculation of India's GDP, right? So this is one concept that we can understand also. So we have understood this goods and services, we have understood this domestic territory of an economy. Now let's understand the financial year. So as you know, financial year is very simple to understand. Financial year, when we talk about financial year, this financial year starts from financial this financial year starts from 1st of April to 31st of March, right? To 31st of March. So for example, this is the financial year 2025-2026, right? This is the financial year, also can also be written as financial year 25-26, right? Financial year 25-26. Now this particular year will start from 1st April 2025. So the financial year which is going on is from 1st April 2025. It will go up to 31st March 2026. Now this financial year is divided into 4 quarters, 4 quarters each of 3 months, 4 quarters each of 3 months, right? Each of 3 months. For example, quarter 1, if we say quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 and quarter 4. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. For example, this it starts from April, May, June, right? Then it starts from July, August, September. Then it starts from October, November, December. And this is Jan, Feb and March, right? So these are 4 quarters. Now why we need to understand this? This is the reason. This is for example, when we talk about technical recession. This technical recession, what is the definition of technical recession? Is negative GDP growth for successive 2 quarters. Negative GDP growth for two successive quarters or successive 2 quarters. Now during COVID period, our understanding is the first technical recession in India happened during COVID period. First technical recession in India happened during COVID period. So during COVID period, right? Now what happened is 2 successive quarters, GDP growth went negative, right? During COVID. What does this mean? During COVID period, what does this mean? For example, have we not seen any recession in India? We have seen recession in India, but when we talk about technical recession talks about 2 successive quarters, and we have started quarter estimates. This quarter estimates of GDP, we started from 1996 onwards. So 1996 onwards, before 1996 we are not having quarter estimates of GDP. And for technical recession, what is the definition of technical recession? 2 successive quarters for negative GDP growth for 2 successive quarters. That means we had recession in India, but that recession has not been called as technical recession. The reason is this technical recession is focusing on quarterly estimates of GDP, and we were not having quarterly estimates of GDP before 1996, right? So 1996 onwards we started this quarter estimates of GDP, right? I hope this is clear. Now let's understand few more concepts and then we will jump on answering the questions, right? For example, when we talk about GDP calculation, there are few concepts. For example, one concept is depreciation. What do we mean by depreciation? So depreciation is reduction in value due to normal wear and tear losses. So reduction in value mainly of capital goods, mainly of capital goods due to foreseen obsolescence, or we can write due to wear and tear losses, and foreseen obsolescence. Foreseen means you know that after this particular period this machine will be of no use, this capital good will be of no use. Foreseen obsolescence. What do we mean by this? For example, you have purchased a machine. Suppose you have purchased this particular machine worth rupees 10 crores, 10 crores, and you understand that after 10 years this machine will be of no use, right? After 10 years you have to purchase a new machine. That is why depreciation is also called as what? Replacement cost of the capital. Replacement cost of the capital, or simply you can write replacement cost. For example, this machine you have purchased for worth 10 crores, and this machine will not be of any use after 10 years. So what you can do here, you can prepare an account, and here you will write the value of machine, and this is depreciated value. Just to give you an idea, it does not happen like this, but just to have an idea, value of machine, and this is depreciated value. For example, this is year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, and year 10. For example, this is right, first year. When you have purchased machine, so it is 0th year for you. This is 10 crores. Depreciated value is 0. Now you will not depreciate the value of the machine. Now let's understand, this is first year. What will you do? 10 crores machine worth 10 crore. The machine is of worth 10 crores, and now you are reducing its value. But in the first year, what you will write? The value decreased by 1 crore. Now this is of 9 crores. Depreciated value is 1 crore. Then next year, second year, third year, fourth year, 5 year, 6th year, 7th year, 8th year, 9th year, and this is 10th year, right? So it will 8 crores, 7 crore, price will decrease, or the value of the machine will decrease. 6 crores, 5 crores, 4 crores, 3 crores, 2 crores, 1 crores, and 0. And here you can see the depreciated value. 9 crore, 1 crore is depreciated. 8 crore, 2 crore is depreciated value. 7 crore, 3 crore is depreciated value. 6 crore, 4 crore is depreciated value. 5 crore, 5 crore is depreciated value. 4 crore, now 6 crore is depreciated value. Here 7 crore is depreciated value. 8 crore is depreciated value. 9 crore is depreciated value. And see here, in the 10th year, this depreciated value has reached to 10 crores. Now the machine is of no use because the value of machine has become 0. Now this machine has to be replaced. That is why it is known as what? Replacement cost. Now please understand, when we talk about GDP, I hope this is clear. If it is not, you can go back and you can see again. Now let's move ahead, and we will be talking about one more factor here. If you account for depreciation, if you calculate, include, or you subtract the value of depreciation from the value, that is known as net value. For example, this is gross value. Gross value of machine is 10 crores. When you subtract the value of depreciation from this, minus depreciation, it will be what? It will be net value. Net value. Here it is gross value. So gross value minus depreciation is equal to what? Net value. For example, the machine here the gross value in all the cases is 10 crores. Gross value in all the cases is what? 10 crores. Gross value is equal to 10 crores. Now see here, 10 crores, here also 9 crore. Depreciated value is 1 crore. If you add depreciated value, that will become 10 crore. 8 crore plus 2 crore, 10 crore. 7 crore plus 3 crore, 10 crore. But this is net value. This is net value. The value is keep on decreasing. Why? The depreciation is keep on increasing. So that is why we have written what here is gross value minus depreciation is equal to net value. So for example, when we talk about gross domestic product, GDP, gross domestic product, this is GDP. When we say gross domestic product minus depreciation, it becomes what? Net domestic product. It becomes what? Net domestic product. So we write NDP. Or we can write gross domestic product is equal to net domestic product plus depreciation. When depreciation, you are not subtracting the depreciated value, then it is known as what? Gross domestic value or gross value. When you are subtracting it, it is known as what? Net value, right? I hope this is clear. Right. So these are few concepts related to gross domestic product. Now, when we talk about potential GDP, what do we mean by potential GDP? Now, let's understand, to understand potential GDP, let's first understand this production possibility curve. I hope you must have seen this production possibility curve if you have studied little bit of microeconomics also. Production possibility curve or production possibility frontier. When we design production possibility curve for two commodities, it is like concave shape. When it is concave shape, it is a concave shape when we are having two commodities and it is the marginal opportunity cost for one commodity is higher, that is the concave shape. Otherwise we can have this side, this straight line also as a production possibility curve, and we may also have this convex shape for production possibility curve. Suppose this is the production possibility curve. This is the underutilization of underutilized point, or this is the point which is underutilization, which represents underutilization of resources. This is the point which represents the optimum utilization of resources, and this is the point which represents non-attainable point. And this represents what? This represents the optimum utilization of resources. This represents what? Underutilization of resources. Now please understand, when we talk about optimum utilization of resources, that is the maximum that we can achieve. For example, when we talk about potential GDP, if we are having full employment, if we are having optimum utilization of resources that are available to us, if we do that, then it is known as what? Potential GDP. Otherwise it is difficult to achieve potential GDP because maybe the employment opportunities, or for example the resource utilization issues are there. So that is why potential GDP is the potential that you can achieve, right, giving the optimum utilization of resources. So when we talk about optimum utilization of resources, this is potential GDP. Otherwise we are having normal GDP calculation, right? Now this is one concept that we wanted to understand, right? Also we can go on understanding various other concepts as well, I hope. Now what we can do here is we can jump on the discussion of answer part. Otherwise there are few more concepts that we can understand about GDP here. Is for example, when we talk about factor cost and market price. When we talk about factor cost and market price, so market price includes two things. Market price includes the tax is being added, right? For example, this marker is of 10 rupees, this stylus is of 10 rupees, and when we are adding tax of 10%, then the price will become 11 rupees. So the price in market will be 11 rupees. Suppose this marker price is 10 rupees and government says 20% will be subsidy on this, then market price will become what? 8 rupees. So market price is influenced by tax and subsidy. Market price is influenced by tax and subsidy. When we say factor cost is not influenced by the tax and subsidy. So factor cost is nothing, market price is nothing but what? When we say market price is nothing but what? This factor cost. Market price is nothing but what? Factor cost plus tax. Tax is added in the factor cost, then it becomes market price, and minus subsidy. Here you have to understand that we are talking about indirect tax, because direct tax is on income. So direct tax is on income or profit of corporates, etc. But here we are talking about indirect tax minus subsidy, right? This term combined together is known as net indirect tax. This term combined together is known as what? Net indirect. So this is net indirect tax. Now what we can understand from this GDP at market price is nothing but what? GDP at factor cost plus net indirect tax. This is the thing that we want to understand, right? This is GDP at factor cost plus net indirect tax. Similarly, export minus import, etc. There are various concepts given in 12th macroeconomics book that you can refer. This is one of the concepts that we have understood, right? Now let's come back to the questions. The first question that we can see here is how are the principle followed by Niti Aayog is different, or how are the principles followed by how are the principles followed by Niti Aayog different from the followed by the erstwhile Planning Commission in India? How should Niti Aayog work to improve alignment between the center and state as part of Team India? Now we have to write answer for this. Let's see here. Now I have written this in the paragraph form, but I have already explained you that these answers can also be written in this particular format. You can use this type of graphs, this type of images, and you can represent this, right? Or you can also make a column, and here you can write about the parameters, and this is Niti Aayog and this is Planning Commission, or Planning Commission and Niti Aayog, vice versa. You can write it like this, but to understand the content, let's see here. So for example, when we talk about this, National Institute for Transforming India, that is Niti Aayog, set up in 2015, is a policy think tank of the union government that aims to involve the state in economic and development policy work making in India, and it replaced the erstwhile Planning Commission in India. Now please understand, when we talk about Planning Commission or Niti Aayog, both are what? Executive body. Both are executive body. What do we mean by executive body? For example, let's come back here and let's understand first what is executive body. So bodies in the country can be classified as constitutional bodies, then non-constitutional bodies, non-constitutional which is not created by constitution. Non-constitutional is not against the constitution. Against the constitution is unconstitutional, right? Unconstitutional is against the constitution. Constitutional and non-constitutional created by constitution. For example, when we say Article 280, Finance Commission is created by constitution, right? So similarly, there are UPSC and President, etc. There are many bodies which has been created by constitution. For example, Comptroller, Auditor General, CAG, etc. They have been created by the constitution. For example, this Election Commission also created by the constitution, right? But when we say non-constitutional bodies, non-constitutional body can also be classified as statutory and non-statutory body. Statutory body and non-statutory body. When we say statutory body means created by a law. For example, created by a law, statute. For example, when we talk about National Green Tribunal, National Green Tribunal has been created by NGT Act 2010. For example, we talk about RBI. RBI has been created by RBI Act 1934. So RBI is also created by Act, statutory body. So this is known as what? Statutory body. Non-statutory body, again, you can classify them as executive body and non-executive body. Executive and non-executive. So when we say executive body, this Planning Commission, this Niti Aayog, all are executive body. When we say non-executive body, maybe private bodies can also be there. Now, what I want you to understand here, when we say executive body, if you want to bring any sort of change in their composition, in their functioning, you need not to make any amendment in any particular law. When you want to make changes in constitutional body, you have to you have to amend the constitution. So constitutional amendment is required here. When you want to bring change in statutory bodies, you need to amend the law. So for both these cases, constitutional bodies or statutory bodies, you have to go to the parliament. You need to amend the law, and that's how the change will take place. But when we talk about executive body, since it has been created only by the government order, it can be amended at any point of time with the order of the government, right? So this is the idea about executive body. I hope you are able to understand this. And Planning Commission or Niti Aayog, both are what? Executive body. Both are executive body. Now this is national, this is Niti Aayog. One point you can write about Niti Aayog, and some point you can write about Planning Commission as well, right? Planning Commission. Now this much detail you may avoid writing this much detail, and you can write only set up by a resolution by the Government of India in March 1950. Otherwise, assessing the resources of the country, etc. See, Planning Commission was created in the 1950, and the first planning period starts from 1951 to 56. Now, when we say Planning Commission, what was the need of Planning Commission, etc.? Because we got independence and we were underdeveloping economy. We were having backward agriculture. We were not having this absence of basic key and chemical, basic key and infrastructure industries, etc. So we were having a lot of deficiencies. For example, the social indicators, we were performing very poorly on social indicators with respect to infant mortality rate or literacy rate, or for example, this people living in below poverty line, etc. So what we thought is going for a planning mechanism, planned economy, right? We followed the model of mixed economy, but with having some sort of socialist tilt. And then we started with planning period. And then you can understand very well here that when we talk about Planning Commission, this Planning Commission was having a top-down approach, right? It was having a top-down approach. The Central Planning Commission will plan for the entire country, and this plan will be on the basis of this plan, the resources the allocation of resources will take place. For example, when we talk about central problems of an economy, what are the central problems of economy? What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So all these decisions, resource allocation, etc., allocation and distribution will be planned by Planning Commission in this particular case. But as we evolved in 1991, liberalization, privatization and globalization, so LPG reforms took place, and then we opened our economy. So now the relevance of Planning Commission declined, right? For example, after 1991, we started having market orientation, and with those market orientation, the relevance of Planning Commission declined. And when relevance of Planning Commission declined, finally in 2015, Niti Aayog replaced the Planning Commission, right? And now there are principles governing Niti Aayog. So these are the principles. For example, cooperative federalism. As I have already told you, the Planning Commission was having top-down approach, so centralized approach was there. Now, with respect to Niti Aayog, that is cooperative federalism, right? Cooperative federalism. I hope you are able to understand this. I will be sharing this PDF, right, in your answer writing group. So you will be able to get this PDF there. No need to worry. And you can also give example with whatever principle you are writing. You can give one example. Sustainable action for transforming human capital, that is SAT program, has been launched by Niti Aayog with the state governments to initiate the process of transforming education and health services. Now what we are health sector. Now what we are trying to do here, we are giving an information. We are giving this particular principle, cooperative federalism, and with this principle, we explanation, you can summarize the explanation, you can short this particular explanation, and then you can give one example, this much. You can also cut short depending upon the word limits that you are having. You can cut short this explanation. Then policy and program framework, for example, the 3-year action agenda by the Niti Aayog. So now here you can talk about program framework. Here you can talk about outcome oriented approach, not exactly like planning, etc. Then knowledge and expertise, inclusion of expert members, etc. here, and think tank function giving input or providing input and advice to the government. And example, you can see in every case we have given some example. This will boost your marks in the exam. So what we can do here is these examples play very important role. Content will remain the same, more or less the content will remain the same, but we have to focus more on giving example of every principle that we can write. Now, way forward for Niti Aayog to for Team India, how we can work as cooperative federalism, etc. We can respect the principles of cooperative federalism. So we can give some of the topics. Establishing open borders within the country for an open labor market, facilitating effective implementation of national programs that promote job creation, or for example, quality of the labor force and enhance ease of doing business. Also, high quality public expenditure, particularly capital expenditure. What is capital expenditure? That is expenditure done on assets, creating assets, that is capital expenditure. right? Also diluting asset is also part of capital expenditure, but we are focusing on creation of assets, right? Ensuring policy predictability at the state level. For example, this generating conversation or conversation about climate change with respect to challenge produced by it and or challenge posed by the climate change, because climate change we cannot fight even at country level, we cannot fight, we need to have a global cooperation. So when we talk about global cooperation, at least in our states we should have cooperation. So that is the mitigation and adaptation approach, etc. And this is with respect to Atmanirbhar also. These steps would inadvertently push India to become Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? This is how we can understand. Now, coming back to second question, discuss the various structural and governance reforms undertaken in the last decade that strengthen the India's economy fundamentals by Indian economy is fundamental by enhancing the overall efficiency. Now, what reforms we can write? So, for example, we can put economic survey according to economic survey 22-23, or we can give other information also. But when we talk about reforms, the Indian government has imparted a new dimension to reform in the last 8 years as the focus on creating public goods, adopting trust-based governance, and co-partnering with the private sector for development and improving agricultural productivity. Now, when we talk about structural reform, we can also talk about economic reforms, in which this goods and services tax is one reform that we can talk about. So, when we talk about structural reforms, we can give some less words you can use, but the answer, the composition of answer will remain more or less same, right? This is how we can write these answers. So structural reform, for example, so I will be sharing this all these files in the group. You can refer to the content, and then we can have if any doubt is there, then we can have discussion. For example, infrastructure reforms, this is national infrastructure pipeline, NIP is there. Manufacturing reforms, for example, Make in India. Agriculture reforms, we can talk about ENAM. And banking reforms, we can talk about this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code IBC 2016, that plays very important role. Also, we can talk about DBT, direct benefit transfer, right? Linking Aadhaar with the bank account and transferring to the beneficiary. Now, governance reform. When we talk about governance reform, in last one decade, for example, for this bureaucrats, this is Mission Karam Yogi, from rule based to role based. This we can write. It was launched as a new national architecture for civil services. Good governance index 2019, for example, these electoral reforms, etc. So these reforms can also be written. Government subsidy rationalization, we are the huge burden is there on the union budget from subsidization. So this subsidization can also be rationalized. Rationalization of subsidy is needed. For example, with respect to urea, with respect to fertilizers, government is spending a lot on urea as a fertilizer subsidy, so that should be rationalized, right? So for example, the steps taken in this regard, this neem coated urea, etc. Now, third question, giving examples, elaborate the contribution of digital infrastructure. Digital physical infrastructure. For example, the first and foremost thing you can talk about digital payment. Unified payment interface, that is UPI played its role there. Goods and services tax implementation, example GST network. This is on the digital backbone, right? So it is having this IT as a backbone. E-commerce and formal retail, the kind of consumption has increased, the kind of retail and the for example this sale of goods, etc. has increased because of e-commerce. Financial inclusion you can talk about because of digital reforms, right? And some for example, you can quote some of the reports, some of the what IMF has said about digitization in India, etc. That is how these things you can use to conclude your answer, right? Then the difference between computing methodology in India's GDP after 2015, before 2015 and after 2015, what changes have introduced. So I have listed all. You can summarize this while writing, because you are not having that much word limit while writing answer, so you can summarize this, right? But I have given everything that you can understand here, so you can refer to the answers that are given here. Question number 6, no, it is question number 5, right? Discuss the potential and challenges promoting internationalization of rupee. So what internationalization of rupee? One important factor that you can discuss here is India is not having 100% capital account convertibility. So we are not having 100% capital account convertibility. We are not having 100% capital account convertibility. This is one thing. But what are the advantages? Sorry, what are the advantages here? We can see advantage. For example, we will not be having that much need to hold on foreign exchange reserve, etc. So these things can be written. So all the advantages, disadvantages, I have already listed. Advantage and challenges, you can refer to this, and this explains the day 1 questions that we have seen. For day 2, we will meet soon, and maybe on Thursday or Wednesday we will be meeting, and we will be discussing second day questions also. The topic has been given to you in your group, and the question paper will be uploaded tomorrow, and then we will have a discussion day after tomorrow, right? So I hope it was a helpful exercise for all of us, and you may have got some idea with respect to some concepts related to GDP, and then how to write answers or the content related to answer, right? So we will meet in the next session. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.